I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We have yet another perfect pod headed your direction. Stuffed to the gills, fueled by the lunch of champions. Andrew Kuo, what are you eating on this muggy Monday in New York City?
Man, I eat the same amazing lunch I eat every day. Probably for the last 15 to 25 years. My whole life. It's a filet mignon, a bunch of cheese, maybe some like mozzarella. It's like a caprese salad, but there's no tomatoes. It's a keto masterpiece, man. I'm the only one on planet Earth who eats this lunch every day, though. So what are you getting at?
No one else eats that lunch? Because it's very specific. You're talking about a couple slabs of maz, some moots,
Some moots.
a nice, let's say medium filet mignon. And you're saying no one else eats that lunch like you do.
As far as I know, it's on a paper plate usually.
Well, I've got some news for you, Mr. Kuo. You coincidentally share the exact same lunch taste as Anna Wintour.
Oh, Emmanuel Quickly.
legendary-
Oh, Anna Wintour. Oh, wow.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Anna Wintour, the legendary Vogue editor. What are the odds?
Well, the odds are great because between me and the two people I was hoping it would be, one Anna Wintour, the other one Emmanuel Quickly, legends, just fucking legends everywhere, man.
So you're saying the odds were high?
Very high, sort of like the Suns losing by 40. This 30, whatever. The gentleman's Game 7 loss. This is a very delicious looking lunch, but that's a lot of meat to consume every day, isn't it? I mean,
Well,
like
people apparently were aghast. They were aghast at this meal. Some
It was
corners of the
delicious.
internet cry. This is from thetakeout.com. Just a hunk of cheese? Does she even eat vegetables at all? Headlines calling it weird, bizarre, baffling. I don't think it's that weird.
No, it looks delicious, but it's like a lot of meat to eat every day. But if she's eating this for lunch, a steak, she's probably having like a version of this for dinner. She's a keto warrior, man.
Maybe there's something about these carnivorous achievers. Jordan Peterson. Her.
Yeah, her. You remember a rumor years ago? I mean, she's endlessly fascinating, right? And like, there's all these stories swirling around her. Is she really like the character Meryl Streep portrayed in that movie? And around that time, there was a rumor that her lunch every day was soup, and she put a pat of butter on top of the soup. Just ate the butter from the top of the melted butter from the surface, and then threw away the rest. And my first thought when that came out was like, it's hard to dispose of hot soup. Does her assistant go to the bathroom and put it in the toilet? Do you cap it and do you put the whole thing in the trash? You don't pour it down the sink.
It depends on the soup, right? If we're talking like a nice minestrone, which is
Minestrone?
flush.
That's the shittiest of all soups. Come on.
Minestrone, the shittiest of all soups. Wow.
That's like a bunch of stuff. Just like a bunch of Italian stuff. Italian wedding soup is delicious.
Well, yeah, of course. It's got meatballs. We've clarified this. Every home-cooked meal has meatballs.
That's right.
You know about this.
Yes. Well, isn't minestrone basically Manhattan clam chowder without the clams?
Maybe, yeah, sort of.
And some pasta thrown
I
in.
feel like I don't know, pasta fajoule. It's all kind of mushed together in there. But that's harder to dispose. Like if it's a tomato soup,
Right.
a consomme, you can just dump that right down the sink.
Yo, lentils, man. I mean, fuck. Did she get to put it into a bowl? Because this picture of her caprese salad, her minimalist caprese salad and steak, is on a paper plate. Like, you'd think Anna Wintour would eat off of a porcelain plate. Like there's art dealers I know in Chelsea who make their assistants put everything onto like real plateware, and they use like knives and forks, not plastic knives and forks.
Well, this was takeout, I believe, from the restaurant The Palm. That's my understanding of.
Is that the
why
same
it was on
one
a
as the
paper
one
plate.
in L.A.?
I don't know. Never been there.
Neither have I. But a place like the
It
Palm
also
would
has-
have. What? Go ahead.
I was going to say that it feels like the lunch of a person who is dedicated to being skinny.
Yeah. But that's okay. That's a fine. We're not shaming people who want to look the way they want to look. Whatever you got to do. Or are we? I don't know. I don't know what we're doing.
I don't think we're doing either. I'm just surprised by the lack of tomatoes.
A lot
I
of
feel
people
like the
hate
tomatoes would really spice that up, though. Spice
Tomatoes
is
are
the wrong word, but-
controversial, though. An oddly controversial thing to eat, I think.
Are you one of those people that's going to tell me about nightshade vegetables?
No, I love all tomatoes. Get out of here. I'll even eat tomatoes like when they're like weird and gray and green. Whatever, it's a tomato. But a lot of people I know think they're too tart. Think they kind of taste like metal, sort of like blood from like a rare steak. A lot of close friends of mine will not touch a tomato.
Not to be a tomato snob here,
Say
but
tomato.
I get people not liking tomatoes until they're in season. I will say that is true.
Oh, all right.
Well, when you get the mealy ones from the supermarket, like up until I don't know, like July or whatever, a lot of them are bad. You cut them open and they're kind of like pale inside, slightly whitish.
Yeah.
But when it's tomato season, we've talked about this at length.
Yeah. Is there what rapper would put out the mixtape Tomato Season?
Oh man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Salad-related rappers, man. Something with Green. Green Lantern's a DJ, but whatever.
I mean, it could be Kendrick. He has his Sweet Green deal, along with Devin Booker of the eliminated Phoenix Suns, the humiliated, befouled Phoenix Suns.
Wow.
He's got a big sign, though, shot by our buddy Jason Nacito.
Oh, is that the one with the greens in his teeth?
I think so. He's wearing a hoodie. But I saw a billboard for it up over by the Post in Brooklyn, which was the site of the first Cookies Hoops Classic. There's a big photo taken by our friend of Devin Booker lording over that block. So
Wow.
a lot of vectors coming together there.
Have you listened to the Kendrick record?
I have not. I was texting with our buddy Jason Johnson earlier, and we're just kind of talking about Kendrick is an odd megastar. Like you would not expect Kendrick Lamar to be like the pillar of modern day rap artistry. This is not any reflection of his talent, but he's like very wordy. He raps fast, complicated. It's odd that he is this level of star in like the current rap ecosystem. This is not to say he doesn't deserve it. It's just an odd series of events that brought a guy who's a little like Gift of Gab from Black Alicious or AC Alone or Rascass, and it's just an absolute superstar. It's like Rascass, the nature of the threat, except he's the biggest rap artist on the planet.
Right. It has a lot. I'm with you on this, and like, I think it has a lot to do with his aesthetics, right? Like, To Pimp a Butterfly, it's like kind of aspirational. Like he doesn't necessarily rap about cocaine nonstop. You know what I mean? He raps about like being a young person in a turbulent world and doing your best, right? And like this is very like self-improvement kind of stuff. I did not enjoy his first record. I don't like his voice. I don't like his rhyming scheme, whatever. I heard Damn was incredible. So I was like, I gotta listen to this album that everyone says is a classic record. And it's amazing. Damn is a fucking great record, right? But this new one came out and everyone's like, well, if you're a fan of, we don't understand, why is he... And I'm like, okay, if you guys are fighting about this, it's definitely not for me.
I enjoyed his first studio album. I never really listened to his mixtapes that much. I enjoyed it. I think he's a good rapper. I like his recent appearances for the most part on Baby Keem's album, which I liked a lot. And there are
huge to
clearly
get
some
Kendrick on your
similarities between the two of them. I mean, he's also in one of the recent videos giving Kendrick a nice smooch on the cheek. Good lad.
Yeah.
But I just feel like maybe Kendrick isn't for me in the same way that Talib Kweli wasn't for me.
Quali.
I don't think they are that
Kweli.
similar.
Wow.
I think, is it Kweli? Kweli? Whatever. Talib.
Lamar.
But Kendrick, I do like more than I liked Talib. But there is something a little bit judgy, a little bit moralizing about him, and I think people love that. But that's not necessarily what I crave from my rap. Is the preaching of self-improvement. I'm less about that than maybe some of his fans are.
Yeah, for sure. And stuff is serious out there, and I get the appeal. I get it turning into an art form like music. I'm not a Kweli fan, but I was at a bar the other day and they played the Mos Def song, that old Raucous record with Kweli on it. It sounded amazing. Like I was like, oh, this is why I was so into like Lyricist Lounge at the time. Like this still sounds pretty incredible, and I didn't love the Black Star record, but there's moments on there, and Kweli's solo output after like Reflections Eternal is like definitely not for me. But this genre of backpack rap like kind of takes its final boss form in Kendrick Lamar, because not only does he borrow from the aesthetics of that scene, he also has like the Dr. Dre, like LA gangster rap thing. So he kind of combines a lot of great stuff together. And
even like the lineage of like hieroglyphics and what was the LA thing that was called? I'm forgetting.
Souls and
It's not
Mystery-
Lyricist
no.
Lounge, but they had their own kind of intellectual backpacker community. It's like lyrical something. I forget exactly, but LA had its version of Lyricist Lounge in that same way.
Right. Yeah, and I think like maybe that's where my disinterest comes in, because whereas I love Olivia Rodrigo, she is like the culmination of many things that are just like packaged in a way that's like she's too big to fail, right? And that's how I kind of felt about Kendrick when he came out. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what's happening. This is too big to fail. Everything is locked in, and his reach is going to be broad because of what we just talked about, And when I heard it, I was like, oh, I just don't like his voice. And not to be the most famous Boston rapper of all time once said, it must be the voice, right? And like, what did he say exactly? What did the lead singer of Jazzmatazz actually tell us? But like, it came true in my mind. It was like, I just don't like his voice.
As Guru said, it's mostly the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't mind Kendrick's voice. I think he's
By
really
voice,
talented.
I mean like rhyming, whatever. Like his
Yeah, no, I get
cadence.
it.
Yeah.
I think he's super talented. I'll listen to him like, wow, this guy can really rap his ass off. It doesn't necessarily mean I just want to listen to it all the time.
During the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show, where all those guys took that check, or maybe didn't take the check, I don't know how it works anymore, but all these rappers came out, and I was like, yes, and then Kendrick was there, and I was like, okay, fair enough. To me, he might be a bit didactic. There might be a little like too much seriousness in there for me. Chance the Rapper did not turn out to be the artist I think we all hoped he would be. And like, have you been watching the new season of Atlanta?
I have not.
It's pretty. There's moments of that show where I'm just kind of like blown away in the past seasons. It's like there's some shit in there that's like very fucking good, And this season kind of lost its way a little bit, and I don't know if he took on like themes or situations that kind of didn't like add up to the thoughts and feelings he did in previous seasons, but it's just kind of all over the place. And I kind of feel that way about Kendrick Lamar, right? Like, it's a little bit of everything. And there's a lot of controversy with him using like certain language in this album, but also representing the opposite of what those words may make like how they would make someone feel. So like, there's tensions there that kind of work, but him as an artist, he kind of spirals out of control for me because, you know, he claims people love the realness and people love the New York City subway realness of him. But then he does like a Pepsi halftime show, and like Sweetgreen's a pretty good restaurant, I think, but like that's confusing. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't even thought about him in those exact terms. I think having two hugely popular artists, both, you know, Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole, guys that I think are technically sound. I would not really be able to tell you J. Cole's voice.
J. Cole. Yeah,
I don't.
What
If J. Cole called me on the phone, I would not be like, oh, it's J. Cole. I literally cannot recognize his voice. I just don't know his music like that. But I think he is technically sound. When I have heard him and be like, that's J. Cole, I'm like, oh, this guy's a pretty good rapper.
Yeah.
He's good at this. It's odd that these guys are so huge, like just absolutely enormous stars within rap, and they don't.
Like
But it's weird. But, sorry, the last point I was going to make. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like back in the day where the guys who were huge stars like were pop, right? It's like, oh, that's like Macklemore, or that's LL Cool J, or
Hello, Cool J.
but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if they're making commercial rap, they're playing at a different level.
Right.
They're making kind of a mainstream version of very independent rap and are large stars. It's an odd dynamic that I can't say has necessarily happened, because when Jay-Z became huge, he kind of shifted away from being, you know, his hyper ornate Baroque lyrics that he did on like Dead Presidents, and moved towards kind of like a Southern cadence, much more understandable. For example, on Hard Knock Life, like very different from how he rapped previously. And these guys are kind of the opposite. If you just listen to their record without knowing who they were, you might contextualize them as being, you know, down with like Armand Hammer or, you know, Mock Hami or something like that.
Right. I mean, we had this discussion kind of briefly centered around the fish sandwich rapper, and you know, like, does rap have to evolve? Like, when I think of, you brought up J. Cole, and I think about Kendrick, it's like this is a what's the right word? Not aspirational self-help. This is like a very 2022 idea, I think. And it's hard for someone listening to these artists and writing about music to kind of criticize it, because these are all great thoughts in a very tough time to be alive in, allegedly. And I say allegedly because every generation says that, you know. It seems to be a theme with life in general. But like, the Alcoholics just rapped about drinking 40s, and they had maybe two great records, I think, at least, right? And Fabulous used to rap about like New York City, basketball, and dealing drugs. Like, cool, it works. Do we need rappers to rap about beer and Yankees fitteds again? Probably not, but like, I would welcome it. Do we need more rappers rapping about self-help? And I'm like, yes, but like, is it like everything funny? That's why I bring up Atlanta, because it's like kind of funny and artistic and cool, and you accept all these didactic ideas because it's hidden behind like a piece of cheese, you know? Like, it's what makes certain artworks appealing to me. But Kendrick, to me, doesn't deliver it in a container that I personally enjoy that much.
Well, we talk about this as it regards to basketball a lot, and that's morality, right? Ethical basketball. And there's clearly...
Wait, I think Toronto invented that.
It's a Raptors fan slogan, ethical basketball.
Right.
But there's clearly a component to why people like Kendrick and people like J. Cole that is moral in nature, that they represent positivity in some regard, or at least the duality of man in that way. They are not viewed as being negative. And I understand why people think that way. But I also don't hold any other kind of art form to that same criteria. You know, when a movie comes out like Don't Look Up, I'm like, well, you know, this is corny. This is preachy. This is a global warming movie.
Yeah.
Like tiresome. But in music, like, oh, it has a positive message. I'm like, I don't apply that to food. I don't apply that to
Right.
you
Well,
know,
some people do.
paintings or anything like that. But I get why people do, especially in the field of rap. It is far more understandable in rap than it is in other art forms.
Yeah, and this, like, I can imagine if I was a Kendrick fan going to see him at MSG, him blazing through all of his hits, and then coming away feeling like a religious feeling, right? Be like, oh my shit, like I'm a different person than I was going in. If I went to see the Alcoholics play, I'm not coming out with that feeling. You know, like it's a different kind of experience. But I think equal in its value in the end. Like I love to watch comedies. I think comedies are too underrated as art forms. But when I watch like a serious movie, like I like a few heavy-handed movies in my life, that kind of changed me, you know, and it's a different kind of experience, and one is not better than the other. And I think that's the decision. That's the mistake I make personally. It's being like, well, this is
You
art.
hit on it though. You nailed it though. I'm thinking about this as art, but other people are thinking about it as religion,
Right.
and this collective of ideas. And as you said, you go to the show, and he's prophesizing. He is spreading the good word. And it is a belief system of positivity that people are engaging with. They're not necessarily viewing it as solely art, but that's why, especially Kendrick, is so effective. Right. That he is spreading a message that people want to hear, that people think is important and serious and needs to be heard, while doing it with, you know, incredible craft. Like he is a very technically excellent rapper. He's very good at this. The production is generally excellent. Like the packaging of it is artistic and well positioned, but he's also giving you a message that people want to hear.
For sure. And it's I was re-listening to like the Taylor Swift like reworkings. I thought pretty awesome idea. So I was like giving it another shot the other day. They're really good. And I was like, she's rapping. No, she's singing about like her past relationships and these like awful dudes that she dated. But you know, she's mad at them and forgives them. And they felt like very static thoughts. I was like, well, this is a kind of time capsule into her life, and you know, like the blue periods of a painter. You know, whatever. We can talk about the Taylor records at different turns in her career. And she has that kind of religious fan base as well, but she navigates the world of her art in a different way than what Kendrick is. Kendrick is almost like I think you said it, like sermonizing. Like he has an idea about a big thought, and he wants to tell you this idea and convince you to think along with him. I think it's pretty powerful. I think I want to be swayed by an artist like him. He just does not convince me personally.
Kendrick delivers content, and I think
Yeah.
that people appreciate in a way that they may not appreciate from, say, Young Thug or Gunna. The YSL guys who are down bad right now.
What a shame.
And I prefer, you know, Young Thug to Kendrick, just from
because you're a fan of the art form, right? Yep.
Well,
I
just
understand.
an audio standpoint. I like listening to him more. He doesn't necessarily have the same, and he does have the same weight. He's an incredible artist. I'm not even gonna. They're on the same tier. They're both magnificent.
Oh, absolutely.
And
That Gunna record really grew on me. That song Push and P about painting in studio. Mwah. Pushing paint every day.
Pushing pasta.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as everyone knows, this is, I think the arrests and the RICO charges all came down a little bit after we recorded this pod last weekend at NADA, which was a fun experience, a live pod. Shout out to everyone who put that together. But really serious charges for the entire YSL crew. And as have been the case with other RICO charges leveled against rappers, you know, the evidence cited in this 88-page document is like, used a snake emoji, like wore a chain in a photo, lots of social media stuff. Yeah. But at the root of it, there was a murder. There was a car that was rented that was used in the murder. There was an attempted murder in jail of a rival. And as of yesterday, Young Thug has been in solitary confinement with the lights on for 4 days straight. Like,
are you serious?
They're just like torturing Young Thug at this point.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, you know, we've talked about maybe Young Thug being the artist of this century. Mm-hmm. I think it's on the table. To see, this is a whole like debate we've been having forever with rap music. Like, does the art imitate the life, or or the other way around? And with every gangster rapper, and are these good people? What is good? Who is good to you? Who helps your community actually? You know, like, what is morally acceptable for you as a listener, and where you live and where you're from, you know? And Thugger's kind of a hero to many, but on paper he might have done some fucking bad things, right? And like, it's hard to reconcile both things, because his artwork is so good that he can almost convince me that he's innocent through, you know, like, murder's a bad thing, man. And these guys live very tough lives.
The RICO thing complicates everything, though, because it makes you responsible for stuff that you know about, which is just not how life operates.
Right.
But when they were executing the search warrant after he was arrested, they went to his house and they found guns and weed. And I'm looking at that like, okay, there's 7 more felonies tacked on. Like, knock it off. Enough, federales. Like, guns and weed? You mean weed that is legal in like half of America? Legal weed? And guns which are legal in the
Constitution.
South. Yeah. Like, he didn't make those guns. Like a sawed-off shotgun. Like, get the fuck out of here. Guns and weed are basically legal. Guns are legal everywhere in America. Weed is legal half the place, and all these felonies piling down upon him. I'm like, we're supposed to be up in arms, no pun intended, because a successful rapper has marijuana and guns at his house? Whoop-de-fucking-do.
I know. If movies have taught me anything, especially like Italian gangster movies, it's like, we know they murdered like 15 people. We got to get him on like some weird alimony payment that he missed, you know? And then we got him on the murders. I'm like what a shitty life. We have the Oath Keepers, and we have, you know, people doing open carry with AR-10s, AR-15s, whatever, walking around. And we're like, wow, 7 more felonies for Thugger. Like, give me a break. I mean, it sucks because I just love him as an artist so much that, like, I think this is all some bullshit. But, like, we'll see. I don't know. It's crazy. And not surprising. When we heard about it, we're like, well, yeah. This gets into some gang stuff that is... We'll see, right? Like... Racketeering is such a general term that I'm just, depending on where, to your point, depending on where the person is, what the rules are for that place, whether they did it somewhere else, it's complicated. We'll see how it plays out. But to take,
just like what an absolutely brutal period of time for Thugger, man. Like, his baby's mother was killed. Died. Yeah. Then he's in jail, as I said, solitary, lights on, 24 hours a day. And then Lil Keed overdosed, reportedly on promethazine, like 2 days ago, who was one of Thugger's like mentees.
Yeah.
Sucks, man. Sucks. Because I'm with you. I care about him because he's a great artist.
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets down on a daily basis, but he was also great on Chillin' Island. He seemed really funny and cool, and he's an incredible artist. So, like, until shown differently, I'm rooting for the guy.
And this is why I'm not a policymaker or someone who makes these rules forever, because I'd be like, he contributes to our society so much, just pardon him. I'd just be like, whatever, Thugger, just don't do it again. From everything up until this moment, you're pardoned. Just make your art, man. Gunna,
Free that man.
Your album is too good. You're out of jail, man. Just don't do it again. Consider this a gift, you know? I don't know. It sucks. It's like one of the few art forms, like this great rap tier, or just rap music in general, where I'm like, I hope this artist gets to make more albums and not get into too much trouble. Like, is Pooh Shiesty still locked up? Like, I was a big fan of his output right before they put it to a stop.
Yeah, free RX Pappy.
He's still in, right? Mm-hmm. This is some bullshit, man. But
Free them all. Free them all.
it's like, Judge, can I get out? So, well, how good was your mixtape?
All right, let's hear it. Are you listening to find incriminating lyrics? No, I want to see if it slaps.
That Caprize Season mixtape.
I don't know. You're kind of offbeat. This is a little wordy.
Yeah.
Talib, I'm sorry.
Oh, are you trying to moralize your... okay, you lost me, man. You're back in jail.
Talib, you're back behind bars.
Yeah. They should have, like, a special jail, since, you know, prisons are some bullshit. They should... I'm cursing too much, but, like, they should have a special jail for artists, like, with a recording studio that their friends can hang out in. They can leave every once in a while.
Probably have that in Denmark.
Yeah, right?
You're
It's like
sentenced to rap jail. No!
It's like, this is the death metal jail where there's a drum kit and recording, so you can still your record producer can come in 4 times a week.
Oh, man, I got a bunk with the guy from Burzum.
Yeah, I think he ate his band member's brain and only did like a couple years time. I don't know.
It's a different system they got over there. So, not to be cracking jokes, I want to talk about Buffalo for a second.
Yep.
Obviously, just a horrific event where an 18-year-old came from the southern tier, went up to Buffalo, and just started murdering people, shooting at them in the parking lot. Naturally, he was arrested alive, as these shooters always are. And
what was his order at Burger King? Did he get a Impossible Whopper?
Right, exactly. So this guy went to a supermarket up there, and just on a just personal anecdote here. You know, I think when I hear about these kind of shootings, there's sort of a numbness and a kind of a removal, right? It doesn't seem real. Like someone went into a Denver movie theater, someone went on to, you know, a college campus, and were horrified by them, but there's this sort of blankness to them where, like, it just doesn't seem real, because how can that be, right? How can you be in a movie theater, someone walks in and opens fire? Like, how can that be real? And this was different for me, because my first job was at a top supermarket when I was 14 years old. And it's a kind of a competing chain to Wegmans upstate. Wegmans kind of shifted towards the Whole Foods model and being, you know, like higher end, like bigger flagship stores, and Tops is smaller and kind of like their version of, I would say, C-Town or Key Food. Mm-hmm. And I worked there pushing carts. And it was, you know, so long ago, but, you know, I can remember this sort of adolescent haze of putting on, you know, a white dress shirt and a little clip-on bow tie and, you know, this red and blue apron. And it was really important because it was a point in my time where I was kind of getting some independence, like making my minimum wage money and using it to buy records. And I bought turntables with them that I still own, and hanging out with, you know, the 18-year-olds who worked there, 19-year-olds who didn't go to my school, sneaking around the building to like smoke cigarettes. And I really remember it vividly, and, you know, the heat of the parking lot and the pulling the carts out from these metal girders, and there'd be wasps inside that would come out flying at you and shit. And to see that on the news in a place that was so intimately familiar with, this kind of period of my life of entering adulthood, and thinking of this fucking loser rolling up there with an assault weapon and just starting to indiscriminately kill black people. And this one I could feel differently than a lot of the ones because of that experience. And it just like made me so sick that this complete loser, egged on and inspired by other complete losers, live streaming to other complete losers, committing this act that just ruined people's lives, who were just going about their like mundane errands, gonna go, pick up some apple juice, and being murdered by this fucking guy, man. I don't know. It really, 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 really made me sick.
Yeah, there's, all these stories are coming out. Like, there was somebody just going to pick up cupcakes for their kid's birthday. It's crazy. And, it makes me kind of think of, like, the way we see, like, this evil, right? Like, in our lives, and the way we see it unfold in social media and on our TV. Like, true evil with a capital E. And these wars, and seeing... Like, I just turn on my TV and I see dead bodies in Ukraine on the street. I'm like, I don't know if I can handle... I'm a grown-ass man. I'm a Knicks fan, and I can't really handle this, Like, and when the news came out about this Buffalo shooting, like, to your point, like New York, and these look like people that are in my community and right now. And I think any way...
He gunned down like mostly senior citizens, just older people going about their like golden years, picking up groceries, as you said, cupcakes, apple juice. I'm gonna stop in here, help my neighbor pick up some stuff, and then this like loser shows up and just starts killing them. It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, and it's something we have to get angry about, right? Because it's like... any way to empathy is a good way. When people argue about like, well, this bad thing happened, but what about this bad thing? I'm like, cool, tell me. I'm a fan of whataboutism, And when there's a war here and someone's like, well, what about the war here? I'm like, well, thank you for telling me. This is not a gotcha moment. Tell me, And any way to enter the world of caring about other people, any way you do that is good. And the more, the better. And when you tell the story about your experience with this place that means a lot to you, like, this is a way, like, to get people to understand this fucking bullshit, right? Like, and to see this happen in New York, and we just had that shooting in Sunset Park here in the subway. Fucking 9/11, right? Like, the way that hit right where we live makes me think that, like, we're living in a great world, I think, and this is a great era. I don't buy the idea that we're living in end times. I don't believe that. But there's still things that we have to change, and I think guns are stupid, but I can say that because I'm not a fan of guns, right? If someone wanted to cancel country music from the universe, I'd be like, whatever. If someone wanted to put Gunna in jail, I'm like, what are you talking about? This has to end. This is madness, And...
Well, this is kind of what I was thinking of when I was talking about, Young Thug being arrested for having all these guns. I'm like, this 18-year-old who went up and just murdered 10 people was able to legally get a gun. Right. Like, he could just go and get that, like, Bushmaster assault rifle and tweak it into like an automatic weapon or whatever with like a $60 kit. Well, this guy was able to legally get it, who had been making death threats in the past. He could get it, and we're supposed to be freaking out about the felonies going for Young Thug.
Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah. And, I believe in a world with rules. I don't think people are good enough to like behave across the board. I just don't think I have that kind of faith in people. I don't believe everyone having access to these things like guns and automatic rifles is like gonna end up being a positive thing. But I understand, and I'm frustrated by this idea of like freedom because it's a good idea. Our country was kind of built on it. I think it's a fantastic starting point, but it gets lost in this kind of stuff. And not only freedom of like having these weapons, but freedom of like talking some stuff, and like people immediately refer to the kind of things that we watch on Fox News or hear about. I stopped watching Fox News a long time ago, but this shooter was motivated directly from ideas put forth in the spirit of freedom of speech. And there's been a lot of debate about this on Twitter because of Elon Musk's alleged purchase of the site, which probably won't happen at this point, maybe. But these are all good ideas, but they've gone wrong. And they're wrong to a point where I'm like, if we just fix one small thing, it's going to make a lot of people upset, but I'd rather have people upset than dead.
And I also feel like people can't resist the temptation for the wrong takeaways. Like the governor, Hochschel, however you say her last name. She's like, we have to look into Twitch. I'm like, that's not the takeaway.
Nah.
It's not the takeaway here. That's not an issue. That's not part of this. Like, stop.
Right.
Just get this. This is easy. This is not about Twitch. It's not about technology.
Right. Yeah, politicians just being like, you know what would solve this? Go out and vote. I'm like, dude, we just voted you in. Do something. It's like, you have the
harder,
power.
vote harder. If only there was someone who could.
You don't want me to vote angry. You don't want to see
amplify
me voting angry, man. I might vote angry.
Doc Rivers will coach angry. Speaking of guns, and I think I'm very pro gun control. It's just in how arbitrary it seems to be, right? This guy who goes on a shooting spree can get guns. Young Thugger can't. And there's an HBO show out right now called We Own This City. It's 3 or 4 episodes in. I've seen the first 3. Maybe the 4th one was last night. I could be wrong. But we're at least at 3. And it's by David Simon, the creator of The Wire, and it returns to Baltimore. And it chronicles a group of cops, dirty cops, called the gun, I think it was called the Gun Trace and Track Unit, I think. I believe that's what they're called.
Baltimore,
and this kind
right?
and this applies to what we were just discussing, right? That how guns are treated, who's allowed to have them in America and who isn't, who is criminalized for them and who is able to walk around Walmart, with one holstered on their leg. Right. So this is David Simon returning to Baltimore, where the corner was set, where the wire was set. This is his home turf. He's kind of had some critical misses in between with Treme, with the Deuce, etc. So this is really what he does best. First off, are you caught up through at least 3 episodes, and what do you think of it?
I'm washed. Of course I'm caught up, man. You think I have better things to do at night? Damn.
TV God.
You think the Knicks are playing? Yeah, I mean, I obviously The Wire's a great show. We don't have to do the litigables. The Wire's an awesome show, and
but hold on. I hate to interrupt you, but Rounders or The Wire?
Oh my God! Well, KGB is a classic character, but you have Omar. Pay the man his money. It's everywhere.
Malkovich versus McNulty. Wow.
Is Tatum more like Stringer Bell, or is he more like KGB? But the reason I think one of the reasons why that show resonates with so many people, even leprechauns, The Wire, is that it portrays law enforcement as like not the protagonist. And I know that sounds pretty simple, but like if you look at Law and Order, like those are still protagonists. Dirty Cops is like a theme. Bad Lieutenant is a very famous movie. Reservoir Dogs, I don't think police officers are shown in a light that is the same every time. But the reason why these 2 shows are great is like the complexity is there, right? Like, is McNulty good or bad? I'm like, neither. Here we go. He's wandering through the Elysian fields like the Odyssey, right? Like, that's my favorite take. He's neither good nor bad. He gets pulled in both directions.
Is this getting to your all the characters are dead take again?
Dude, I am the ghost of Nick's past right now. I'm wandering MSG aimlessly. I heard there was a basketball game played here once. There was a player named Jeremy Lin. But
Sometimes at night, you hear the sneakers squeaking if you listen hard enough.
I do like We Own This City. To me, I can watch this stuff all day long, this kind of show, but I'm a little David Simon fatigued. Gotta be honest.
I get it. My take on it was, early on, it was a little clunky. There's quite a bit of exposition. I feel like there's no need to have 3 or 4 different timelines, and they're always clarifying that, okay, this is after Freddie Gray, and then this is apparently before it, and it felt overly complicated early on, and I thought some of the dialogue and some of the actors were a bit clunky. But I think by the 3rd episode, which is the last one I've seen, I'm in.
Yeah, it's good.
And what I like about it the best is kind of what you alluded to before. We've seen dirty cops, corrupt cops in the past, like The Shield. Typically, they're kind of cool. That's how they're presented with our, nation's love of propaganda. That they're usually cops who are dirty and crooked, but do it for a reason, or they're charismatic, or they're pushing the boundaries in order to be good at their job, like Stabler roughing up a suspect because he just wants to find out where, like, the woman, like, what suitcase the body is in. And this one, I have to say, granted, there are some good cops in it, right? You've got the cops who are investigating the cops, and you have the actor who used to play Marlowe is a homicide officer in this, which is, it's funny little twist. And Dookie is like another cop. Well, the actor who played Dookie on The Wire. Sure. But I can't say I have ever seen law enforcement in terms of the gun trace and track unit, or whatever it's specifically called, portrayed so accurately and so unappealingly as on We Own This City. It is amazing. They are detestable. It is shitty goatees, terrible facial hair.
Right.
They're wearing like Under Armour and gross Ravens sports gear. They all talk in kind of like broy rap slang. Like the
cinematography doesn't do them favors. It looks like basic footage. I think of Training Day, the most despicable cop in, like, one of the most despicable cops in movie history, but also one of the most handsome cops in movie history.
Oh no, he's what makes the movie. He is the movie. It's not about Ethan fucking Hawke.
Yeah. It's like Denzel Washington is a crooked cop who, like, helps his community, and it's like, so he's redeemable in a few ways, and then it's like, okay, but then the good cop, also handsome, Ethan Hawke, it should have been Billy Zahn if you want to choose from the cast of Reality Bites, but that movie kind of like twists our brain too, right? Because, like, oh, are all cops good looking? I'm like, okay. But this one's different.
That's what I mean. It's like they're paunchy, and I mean they're so awful, and I love it. Just watching it, like, look at these gross ass cops that look like real cops, that dress like real cops and talk like real cops. I think it's probably the most accurate depiction of police that I have seen on, like, a major broadcast.
Yeah, shout out to the casting, because the casting is kind of what made The Wire too. But I love whoever did the casting to be like, come on, we don't need like a
and the
star
stylist.
here.
The stylist crushed it on those cops, like their Ravens turtlenecks.
Some dime square ass drip. Did we see that? Did we see that last night in Dime Square at Le Dive?
Folks, we did it. We went to become known as the Wine Bar in the death of Dime Square. The dagger to the heart of the neighborhood. A Christmas bar called Le Dive. Or is it Le Dive?
I don't know, but since it's Le, I'm gonna put the Dive in there.
It's
It
funnier
could be
if we
Dive.
call it Le Dive.
Yeah.
So now that area is called Le Dimes Square.
I've heard. Yeah, it turns out it's gonna take more than a cute Christmas wine bar to destroy the pillar of Le Dime Square. It ain't bad. That's all I'm gonna say. The bar ain't bad. I'm a snob at best, but I thought it was cool.
It seems pretty chill to me. I like that it's on a corner and it's small and they open all the windows and there's some seating outside. It felt very airy and open.
Yeah.
We had beer there. I'm going to go with my review of seems fine.
I mean, the fear was it was going to bring an outsider kind of person, like from Hell Square back in the day, the Epstein's, hair of the dog kind of drinker.
That
right?
may be true, but those people are also right around the corner at like Iron Belly or whatever that shit's called. Like they're not they're there
Belly.
anyway. They're at Kiki's. They're
at Scars,
at
man.
arm's length already.
Yeah. And we're the intruders, right? It's like, Hans, are we the baddies? Like, we're intruding on them. They own that city. And, but, like, we were there and there were cool, friendly faces there that I didn't know. And it was nice. It was a nice time. I don't know, man. I don't think a bar like that has the capacity to sustain like a Butcher's Daughters crowd. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a bit too small, it's a bit too narrow, and they got some homies working behind the bar, some Cookies luminaries, Mr. Hot Dog Legs himself, and it will be like every good bar or restaurant. It'll be like kind of a self-policing thing if we're talking about that.
Yeah, I don't know how it will evolve. It may be full of people that are annoying, like most bars.
And people not us.
But it's funny that I've seen on Twitter people be like, kind of curious to check out the wine bar.
Check it out.
I told myself I wouldn't. Like this forbidden fruit in Times Square. I mean, it's just kind of a little innocuous bar.
And not to get too insider baseball, we were yelled at. We were snitched on because someone saw us in there. And we're like, fine, we'll leave the cozy confines of this wine bar and go to where you are. And it was harsh as hell. I'm like, can I go back to the wine bar?
We were confronted.
We were
We were dragged out of there.
We were dragged out of there by one of our close friends.
Get back in your home.
Yeah, to another situation. I was like, it was nicer in the Christmas restaurant, man. I'm saying, it was better food. It was chiller.
The windows are nice. Look, it is. Yeah. It has to earn its stripes. Unlike the other bar. The other bar is entrenched. That's our spot.
Yeah.
I do like some windows. Nice. All in all, the review is the wine bar seems fine. Seems fine.
Yeah, if I was gonna have to do if I was tasked to do a takedown of Le Dive, I'd say it's pretty chill actually. Not a bad
the
time.
Wine bar.
Yeah.
Coming this summer to De La Dime Square.
I mean that hotel. Let's go. Let's just see what happens. Game 7. It's Game 7 of Le Dime Square. It could be a blowout.
It could be a blowout. There's a lot of blowouts over this weekend here. I don't know where to start with the playoffs. I think it's time to talk some hoops.
It's about that time.
We always complain about talking about playoff basketball because things change. But finally, we're at a point where we can actually talk about the 4 teams who are moving on. And that's cool. This is a fun time to talk about it. After game 1, it's less fun because your take gets annihilated.
Right.
But right now we got a little window. But because we're not going to talk about them for a while, can we talk Sixers a little bit here? Let me get my Sixers fix.
Let's do it.
So the Sixers, they lost to the Heat. Joel Embiid heroically came back from a broken face, messed up hand. They came back and evened the series at 2-2. And then went on and lost the next two games to the Heat. And we know what happened in Game 7. Want to tell the people what happened in Game 7? Game 6, excuse me. What happened in Game 6, Andrew? What happened that got Sixers Nation riled up?
I'm not even sure what you're talking about. Was it Matisse Thybulle's bricking? Was it
They were mad about that, yeah.
Was it Joel Embiid's lack of that dog in him? Was it James Harden only taking 2 shots towards the end?
Obviously it was James Harden.
I mean, is this classic James or is this classic Doc?
All right, so this is where I was going with this.
Sorry.
For the second year in a row, we have had a strange, not meltdown's the right word, but a strange disappearance by the Sixers' second star when it mattered most. It's eerie.
It's the sequel, right? We've seen this movie.
We've seen this movie. It's ironic. And if you're not a Sixers fan,
It's
it's
the
funny.
Resixables.
It's funny. This happened with Ben Simmons. You went and traded for James Harden, and lo and behold, it happened again with James Harden.
If
Same
only
thing.
someone blogged about this both times this happened before it happened.
So, yeah, they should do that. So, here's my thing. It's possible, right, that this could happen randomly. That the tumblers of the basketball universe twist and turn. And you end up with the Sixers' second star disappearing again 2 seasons in a row. That's possible, right? It's possible. That could just happen. However, this is a situation where they are on the same team with the same coach, the same half-court offense, the same co-star, and the same supporting cast. If you were a homicide cop and you said...
Dirty one? How handsome am I, first of all? Am I as
Super
good looking as
handsome.
Denzel Washington? Yo, okay.
Super handsome.
right,
If you were a homicide cop and someone said, hey, 2 basketball geniuses have disappeared. You'd be like, all right, let's look at the clues.
Yeah. Okay,
Like,
the coach couldn't have done it.
we've got some similarities here. This might be a pattern. And someone's like, well, what do we know? Well, according to witnesses, both Ben Simmons and James Harden were seen leaving the heliotropic basketball genius factory in a car with Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, and they said they were going to Doc Rivers' secluded mountainside second-round kill room.
Wow.
Got any clues?
As a Knicks fan, I thought this was a very enjoyable game to watch.
So
But
we got the who, the what, the why. No, we don't have the why. What's the why? What's the motive?
was it Tobias Harris? Was it Jimmy Butler having more of that dog in him? Was it the amazing defense of Bam Adebayo? Or was it Doc Rivers kind of taking the decision-making out of his star player's hands and turning him into kind of like a release valve that was never valved?
Well, it's interesting that Harden and Simmons are they're obviously very different players, but they're both 2 of maybe, let's say, 10 guys in the NBA that you can use as a complete offensive conduit. And that could be ranging from, Luka and LeBron, and then on the lower side, like a Westbrook. But there's only maybe 10 of those guys. Maybe less. But Simmons and Harden are both in that category.
Sure.
Give them the ball. They will create for themselves. They will create for others. They will just give you a functional NBA offense by their presence alone. Not many guys can do that.
It'll end up with a decent shot most of the times, for sure.
And these guys know it. They know they can do that because they've done it in the past. Right. And yet, both of these guys in the Sixers half-court offense couldn't figure out a way to contribute when it mattered most. And I think we did talk about this in those posts on the Cookies Hoops blog, was that Doc Rivers has a almost intentional reluctance to building lineups around those players. It's almost as if their unique set of skills and the ecosystem they need in order to best produce is an affront to his idea of what an NBA offense should look like. And I do wonder if you put a Luka instead of James Harden, does it look the same? Okay,
Probably.
Luka, come down, dribble handoff to Maxey, pass to Tobias, Joe's in the paint. Like, all these guys we're talking about, would they all suffer the same fate? Maybe not LeBron, because LeBron will just get out there and yell and tell people where to go. But any player trying to operate within Doc's system who has this incredibly unique skill set that is just not being exploited, it's not being used, it's not being embraced, it's not being cultivated or nourished. It's like you're taking these basketball geniuses and saying, play like a normie. And these guys can't do it. This isn't who they are.
And Doc Rivers, we found the murder weapon in his locker. But what's the motivation, right? And that's what I think. Like, we have to come up with the other police end of it. And I think, Doc's reputation of being a player's coach had started a long time ago. The Celtics championship team seemed to love him. And that was a different kind of NBA. There wasn't as much motion. I think the Golden State Warriors kind of changed the way coaching happens, off-ball action happens, switching defense happens. And Doc Rivers is kind, in my opinion, kind to his players, his superstar players. And to him, it's Joel Embiid. So he's like, listen, be great out there. I'm going to put you in this position to succeed by giving you the ball and clearing out. And that makes him like a very lovable coach for a player like Joel Embiid, who has those specific skill sets. But to see it play out in the modern NBA, which is not that far removed from when he coached the Clippers, it's completely different now. And Spoelstra just had him, right? Like, he saw what he was dishing, and Spo was like, I'm just going to end this in 6 games. And it was a lot of correct switching. It was a lot of, like, if you're not going to use James Harden as this heliocentric player, like you said, then, like, we're cooking a little bit. Like, we should not lose this game. And they did not.
I feel like there's been a pretty consistent theme with when the Sixers have been eliminated in the second rounds of the past, and this year included. And it's when teams figure out how to guard Joel.
Yeah.
If you're playing Philly and you're a good team, and the teams in the playoffs are good, they are the ones with the best defenses and the best coaches and the best personnel.
Right.
And they're going to
Sixers
scheme
included.
and they're going to adapt. And you're playing multiple games. They're scouting. They're going to keep getting better at figuring out ways to cover you. And if you're playing the Sixers, you have one goal in the half-court offense at least. Stop Joe from getting to the foul line.
Right.
That's it. That is your game plan. Let's take that away from him. If we can keep Joe off the free throw line, they don't really do anything else. Because when Joe goes to the line, it gets our big men in trouble. We end up getting in the bonus early, and they're always back on defense. But if
And
we
he's
can
very
make him a
good.
jump shooter,
Right.
and he's very good.
Right.
He's a good shooter, and he's amazing at drawing fouls. He led the league in free throws taken, I believe. And if you can take that away, it is proven year in and year out that Joe will keep trying to
Yes. Right.
bludgeon his way through that. And to me, that is my criticism of Joe. It is not a failure of talent or dog in him or heart or toughness or anything. It's the fact that he has not been able to figure out how to hurt teams when they solve when they sell out to stop him.
Right.
Okay, you've got Bam Adebayo, who's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He is on you. They're fronting you all over the place. You're being doubled in the post. They're sending second defenders from different angles where you can't see them. They're trying to make you a jump shooter. You get the ball at the top of the arc. They've got guys lurking there on both elbows. You're facing a wall all the time. And he's like, cool, I'm going to hoist up 24 jumpers or whatever.
Right.
He hasn't figured out how to beat teams who are focusing that intently on him by punishing them in different ways. And, you go back and you look at his performance in elimination games, this year, 7 of 24. I know he's hurt, but dude, if you're not 100%, why are you taking 24 shots?
Right.
Like, if you're out there with a messed up hand and a broken face, why are you taking 24 field goal attempts? Why? Right. And you go back last year, 11 of 21, 8 turnovers against the Hawks. A couple years back when they were limited by the Raptors, 6 of 18, 4 turnovers. This is a pattern. 3 times when the Sixers were contenders, they have lost in games where Joe has not played well. And my thing with Joe is this. If they are going to sell out to stop you, you have to figure out ways to trust your teammates.
Right.
And he didn't trust James Harden. He didn't trust Ben Simmons. He didn't trust other people to take over the reins. He just tried to force his way through it. And NBA defenses at that high level in the playoffs are too good to do that. He needs to trust his guys. That's my thing. You look at the talent the Sixers have had. It's not like Jokic.
I was going to say, Jokic can do that. Right.
He said Jokic can do that because Jokic is a great passer.
Yep.
Joe has that Mamba mentality where there will be an open teammate, and Joe will force up a contested jumper with 3 guys on him. And everyone says, get this guy some help. He's had help. Yeah. He has James Harden, Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler,
Maxey. Yeah.
Redick, Saric, Covington. They've had good teams. They've had a lot of talent. But when the chips have been down, Joe will not let his team win if it's not on his shoulders. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and there was some chatter about the supporting cast not being good enough and missing key role players like Seth Curry. But to your point, I saw it like Niang is good enough. Like there's a lot of interesting pieces on the Sixers team still. But if Joel is going to be a straight line to what he wants to do in a game, then like these surrounding players cannot succeed because they're not giving the correct environment to do things that like you see balanced teams do. I mean, a top-heavy team works, but when you have a weapon like James Harden, like to your exact point, like I think a maestro like Jokic figures out how to manipulate the game as it's happening.
I'm not knocking Joe for going 7 of 24. Yeah. I'm not knocking him for his performance. I'm knocking him for like doing that. Like why are you taking these shots? Yeah. Why are you hoisting up contested jumpers? I know that sometimes he gets the ball late in the clock because they're working to get him touches and he has to put up a shot. I know that. Yeah. Again, I'm not knocking him for missing these. I'm not like, oh man, if you're going to take 24 shots, you got to make 12. Sometimes you miss. It happens. But I'm like, what do you want James Harden to do? And after the game, James Harden was like, well, the ball never got back to me. And you look at the box score, like, well, right, because Maxey took 20 shots and Tobias was chucking. And if you're Harden, I'm not making excuses for James Harden. I'm saying I understand kind of what happened here. Right. There are times when you're playing ball, and
oh boy,
and I'm even saying on my bullshit level, where you're like, I can help our team, I can help us. Doesn't mean I'm the star, but I can help us. I got some ideas. Right. And guys in your team are just chucking. Yeah. You're like, okay, all right, well, if that's what we're gonna do, I'm all right. I'll just go over here then. Pass me the ball when I'm open, and like, you don't want what I can bring. And I feel like that's what I kind of got from Harden, was he's out there being like, hey man, every time all 3 of you guys get the ball, it's going up. Like no one's saying, James, like, can you help us here? Can you solve this? Can you figure out what's happening and do what you do best? Everyone's just kind of getting the ball and going. And just as someone who's been on teams and not contributed, I'm like, there's times when you feel that way. You're out there and you're like, hey man, like I feel like if I could run some pick and rolls, I could get some touches for their big guys, but I could help. Yeah. I feel like James was sort of like, hey, you want to do it this way? This is Doc's way. And then after the game, they asked him, were they playing calls from you? And he was like, next question. I'm like, that answered it.
Yeah, right.
Second year in a row when you've had, Joe's leading co-star basically opt out and say, all right, I'm not part of the half-court offense. That's just not what we're doing. And whether that's Doc or Joe or Tobias or like the Maxi Curry sort of like off guard combo that happened with Simmons. Like, I just don't think it's coincidental that this has happened twice.
Yeah, and when Al Horford was the famous Orfoot was in Philly, we wrote him off. It's like, oh, he's washed. He's kind of lollygagging out there. He doesn't have that dog. And we're seeing like a lot of it's a point of view of the team, the coach, the players on the court. Because Horford is probably the best Celtic player. We'll get to them in a minute. But Horford is balling out, and Harden is a wonderful player. He's still, I thought he was kind of physically diminished with his age a bit. But that wasn't really the issue this series. The issue was point of view, to your point. He wasn't allowed to do Harden things. And when you have a Lamborghini and you drive it to the supermarket, like you're going to get the groceries, but like you don't need the Lambo. And I just thought it was pretty funny to see what Simmons had to go through, what we had to go through as basketball fans, hearing all these people talk about if Simmons is in his own head, if how badly does he want it, is he doesn't want to get better. And we watch it happen with like a pretty like level-headed, like James Harden is as sound as it gets mentally, it seems, like the dude is
people would argue against that, but I'm with you. I mean, this is a guy who is led the league in scoring 3 times. This is a guy who has been an MVP.
He's played with many personalities. He's dictated his own path. Like, I think he is of sound. Like, he's a healthy guy, Probably listens to his fair share of J. Cole, But, like, he probably doesn't, actually, which is why I love him more.
No, he's of sound mind, yes.
yeah, exactly. But, when you're a good teammate and when you're great at basketball, you change to what your team needs, to your point, and it leaves you as the scapegoat. And Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid really took that angle to try to put a cap on this season.
A tradition unlike any other, the Joel Embiid bust toss of his co-star.
He's officially a snitch, like whatever. He's a funny one. I love Joel Embiid. He's my MVP, but like he's a snitch. He loves to sell out his teammates. Never his fault. It's never Doc's fault.
I don't even view this through some, like some moral compass, right?
Yeah,
where
it's
like,
funny.
Oh man, he's wrong for that. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
and in some ways, Joel has been positioned as the Sixers' hero. He is the pillar of this organization. It represents everything good about what
his honesty,
the Sixers Nation want from their athletes. Yeah. He is the one. And to reference what you said before, though, are we the baddies? Again, let me be clear. I am not moralizing here at all, because we're talking about sports and entertainment and palace intrigue and and basketball. This is all entertainment. This does not make you a good or bad person. When people are saying Simmons quitting the team, he's a terrible human, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? What the hell is wrong with you? There's nothing to do with him as a human. There's nothing to do with him as a person. Shut up. Yeah. And my thing is, Joe might be the villain of this story.
Which is amazing. I love villain Joe.
And
like,
again,
I'm
just emphasizing, this has nothing to do with him as a person. I don't think he's villainous. He's Joel Embiid. He's awesome. But in this palace intrigue, in this Sixers workplace, like Joe might actually be the bad guy here.
I think, and I love it. Right? Like,
I got no problem with it either.
He could back it up with his play. He was unbelievable for 2 straight seasons. The process worked. Everyone wants to relitigate that every time, and it's fun. I'm taking the bait. And there's so much drama around this team because the expectations are that high, because they have an MVP caliber player on that team that Sam Hinkie got through his manipulations and his genius, right? But I like Joe as the bad guy. And, is he being honest? I don't care about, like, what kind of snitching he's doing. When you accuse somebody of something, it's just like, okay, you can do that.
He said Harden was washed.
Yeah. And Doc Rivers basically said the same thing. Again, it's like, I'm a good coach. You guys keep on saying I'm a bad coach. I'm a great coach.
Go ask Harden why he's so rinsed.
Yeah. Daryl Morey is the only one who did this right. It's like, I believe in my team. Everyone's coming back. I'm giving you nothing. Exit stage left, you know?
I agree. This is how you do it. And in my opinion, I don't think Doc will be back next year. But you do it like Morey said. Absolutely. Full faith. He's coming back later.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you think? No plans to change. That's our guy. Full faith.
Yeah.
Full
I
faith.
love my team.
And then you figure it out.
Yeah.
Then you got months. You can figure it out.
Exactly.
The MVP debates are old news. I just wanted to make one point because we didn't talk about it last week. I had one point about the MVP. And my stance all season long has been that Giannis, Jokic, Embiid are all fantastic candidates. I don't think there's a real basketball reason to pick one over the other ones. And after Jokic won it, I kind of got bummed because it was the wrong decision. It was the wrong vote for the wrong reasons. And I think the people who came out and said, they're overvaluing analytics, those are typically the crowd that we don't agree with. I would say our view on analytics is progressive.
Yeah.
Numbers are cool. More information is good. Just know how they're derived and what they mean.
Exactly.
Sure. But I kind of thought about those sort of the grumbling, green egg grill masters. And I thought, you know what? They're fucking right. They are. They're right. Analytics is too important in end of season voting awards. They're correct. Because if you exclude Marcus Smart, who was just voted in because he's a Celtic, like straight up, not even having that conversation.
Did he win the Larry Bird Award, or is the Larry Bird Award for different? Which is the Larry Bird Award? Are they all Larry Bird Awards?
No, I think he got the Maravich Parish Award.
Oh, nice.
But excluding Marcus Smart, because that's real, he just got it because he's a Celtic. No need to belabor that point. Out of the last 4 years, the guys who won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, every single one of them has been the analytics guy. Every single one. That's 7 for 7.
Gobert's a good player, though. Whatever.
He's a good player, but he was the analytics guy. Every single one. We didn't get one that was like a Lifetime Achievement Award, one that was just because it was a great story, one that was bullshit, one that was a gimmick. Yeah. None of that. We didn't get any of these. Oh, he's just a bucket getter on the best team. None of them. Every single time it's been the analytics guy. The analytics agree. And we know in the case of Simmons and Gobert, as a Simmons stan, that they were wrong. Simmons was the best defensive player. It wasn't Giannis. It wasn't Gobert. It was Simmons. He was the right call, but analytics said he wasn't, and he lost handily to Gobert.
Right. But it's a flaw in the voting system and the flaw in the voting pool, right? We don't know exactly where all the votes are coming from, but we know a few. And these are grill masters, man. I watch them talk every day on TV or on my headphones. These are not analytics dudes. Analytics dudes did not pick Jokic, but it's a flaw in the voting system where it's like...
But what I'm saying is...
Okay.
What I'm saying is they did. And I know there are grill masters in this mix. But what would be the argument for Jokic to win it for a second back-to-back year? It wasn't that he's a guy who hasn't gotten the acclaim he deserves. He won the goddamn thing last year.
But what if...
It's not that he had a breakthrough season. He did it last year. His team wasn't awesome. Like there was nothing about giving him this award that fit any narrative except that he deserved it off the merit of his numbers.
I don't know. I only halfway go in that direction. If you just look at Jokic being like, okay, so he's maybe the best player in the NBA. Just like whatever, he can pass, he can shoot. The team he started rebounding a lot more. Whatever, his defensive presence kind of got a little bit better. His team was missing its two second and third best players. He still carried them to a similar record as Joel Embiid did in Philly. Like, this guy's just the better player. Joel Embiid is awesome. And also, there's a Philly bias, too, right? Because people don't appreciate the process still.
That's true.
And they don't want to reward Philly for, like, anything, basically. But the point I wanted to make about the voting is, like, where you're given the choice between, like, bucatine and fettuccine. And I'm like, I kind of like both. But, like, I'm just going to pick fettuccine. It's like, well, what's wrong with bucatine? It's like, nothing. Maybe the next time I'll pick that. But you have to pick one. So it was overwhelmingly in Jokic's favor. But this is where, like, ranked choice voting kind of tells a bigger story. Or maybe, like, a point system where you don't have to make a decision of 1 and 2. I think it would have been a much closer race if we had a better way to accumulate the information.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is that it's not that Jokic was a undeserving winner. He was awesome. I think all these guys have great cases, and none of them have an ironclad case over the other two. They were all magnificent seasons, deserving MVPs.
Right.
They're great. What I think is, what happened here was a victory of analytics over storytelling, if that makes sense. That there was no actual purpose, both short or long term, to award Jokic another award other than saying, when I look at these analytics, I think Jokic deserves it. Because when you look back at this era and you say, okay, Giannis, 2 MVPs, Jokic, 2 MVPs. Like, is that really the story of the NBA right now? Or
yes, so that's my argument. That is exactly the story. If you spread it too thin, there is no narrative. You need, sort of like Larry Bird. If you name enough awards after him, you create a narrative where it was like Magic versus Bird. But like, you're just trying. The NBA does this very well, where they try to form the stories that we tell, and by giving Jokic another MVP, you're putting him on the level where you can debate Giannis versus Jokic. If you bring Joel into the mix, it gets kind of cloudy, right? Like it's a less of a story.
I don't know, because I think this era is really defined by those 3 guys at this moment, post LeBron. But also, it's like, Jokic, a guy who was picked in the 2nd round during a fast food commercial, goes to become MVP. That's a great story. Giannis, who grew up in the dusty streets of Athens selling knickknacks, goes on to become MVP. That's a great story. Joel Embiid, from Cameroon, picks up the sport in his teens, is part of the process, misses 2 years, wins MVP. That's a good story too, and we didn't get that. And I'm like, that's kind of a disservice to not just Joe or Sixers fans, but to basketball.
But that's a chapter in the book. They're trying to write the book. Like, they're delighted that Luka is in the conference finals. That is better than Booker or CP3. Like, the NBA is a for-business company that wants these stories, right? And like, I think they're manufacturing Jokic as a GOAT, and to muddy that up, that path is like, they had the opportunity to do it and they did it.
I like this theory. Let's move on here. Let's move on. We've talked a lot of Sixers. We talked some MVP. Let's talk about your team,
The Knicks.
the Boston Celtics.
Oh, well,
Now hold on. Now 2 weeks ago, we potted. So after game 1, Celtics had lost to the Bucks.
someone used a word that starts with an E.
I said the Celtics were exposed. Let me take this moment to clarify. The Celtics this series were exposed. It took them 7 games to take out a comically undermanned Milwaukee team. 7 games. Like, the Celtics proved they are not a serious team. They're not a serious contender. They screwed around, and it took them 7 games to eliminate a Milwaukee team that was missing Chris Middleton. Honestly,
Middleton, I'm a Middleton day
disappointing.
one. Right.
Disappointing. Like, I expected better from the Celtics team. I had high hopes.
Me being probably the best Celtics fan of
I always say this.
definitely this pod, but my friend circle, maybe the entire world, because everyone's like, yo, Tatum's a top 3 player. Is Tatum the best player in the NBA? And I'm like, why would you shoot so low? Tatum might be a GOAT. So every time he has a bad shooting game, when he like shoots under 20, under 40%, I'm like, he can be better. Other people are like, yo, he is first team all NBA player. And I look at his numbers, I'm like, his assist to turnover ratio is 2-1. He's got to get better. I want him. My criticism is because I want him to get better. No one else wants him to get better because no one else understands how high his ceiling is. So,
I just
Boston,
feel like
you're welcome.
people are very content with Tatum as he is.
I'm not.
I look and say
he's better.
This guy can improve, and people are basically saying, no, Tatum can't improve. He is amazing. Look at him go. I'm like, look, I think we can wean out some of these games, where he shoots 20%.
Yeah.
Like I
or when he has like 7 turnovers. Just
Yeah,
Yep.
he can be better. Like we don't need to, tell him to rest on his laurels. He's 19 years old. He can improve from here.
He's not big Jamal Crawford. He's a GOAT. And I think this is hard for me to talk to you about because like
I get it.
I was so happy that my team won. And like, okay, it took them too many games to beat Giannis without Middleton. But
No, I mean the Celtics were definitely exposed it took them 7 games for sure.
like I'll fight you after this pod because I think the Celtics, my team, like why can't you give this to me is my question. Like why can't you give me this win? Like,
Well, I mean, we saw Giannis exposed, and the exposing of Giannis kind of exposed the Celtics as like a secondary sort of feedback loop, if that makes sense. Like they simultaneously expose themselves, Giannis as a fraud, but also the Celtics as a deeply unserious team.
sunlight is the best disinfectant, and it exposes everything. And I'm a bright shining light, maybe a bright shining green light of this podcast.
You were a beacon. I say this about
green
you
beacon.
a lot. Quo
Yeah.
is a glowing green beacon.
So everyone else is wrong
lantern
about
that's
Tatum.
green.
I'm right about Tatum, and I don't like to brag. Like this is a character trait that no one likes. Someone who brags about winning. But I kind of took it to you with Tatum, so eat that.
I deserve it. Anyway, Celtics Heat. That should be kind of fun. I mean, as a Miami day one, I feel like my culture is white hot.
Wow.
Shout out to Zweigels.
Yeah,
white
yeah.
Hots.
Shout out to our chat where you sent me and Pablo some delicious looking white hots that you cooked up. You got a nice char on them. I'm sad to say, rest in peace to that 14 seconds of your life that you wasted.
I mean, I just wish that New York City could get its own culture. Like everyone down here just eating trash plates, shopping at Wegmans, listening to RX Nephew. Like I know Rochester monoculture is real, but like,
Rochester's having a come up, man.
can you just get out from under our thumb? Like, get your own
Murder
shit,
capital.
okay? Get your own shit.
Are they the murder capital of the world? Of the U.S. right now?
Yeah.
Dude, we need... Anyway, that's a previous conversation, but we need some of that safe New York City energy up there.
That is 100% true. So let's talk about Phoenix's collapse before we get out of here.
Yeah.
So we were at a local Christmas bar last night. It was in Ladime Square.
Right.
We were watching on a phone.
Aghast. Shocked.
I was bewildered. Befuddled.
That can't be the right score. Does that say they're up 40?
I just kept cartoonishly double taking at the score. Ooh. Ooh.
By the time I was a third done with the only beer I had that night, the Suns were down 40 points.
Early third, the game was over. And it was shocking. Here's a question for you. So I saw on Twitter, someone was responding to Seth Parno, and I can't remember if he had retweeted or I just saw the reply. I forget exactly. But someone said their theory was that when, I guess, how was it phrased precisely? When I guess delicate systems, when complex systems in basketball collapse, they collapse in a big way. And that was kind of his explanation for why the Suns got destroyed. That they didn't just lose, they were annihilated in just an obscene way. I mean, it was honestly shocking just to see this demolition unfurl.
Yeah.
Do you think that idea has merit?
Yes and no. It's a very results biased thought to have. But shout out to Jason Kidd. Players change, coaches change. He was not known as a coaching maestro, but you got to give him some credit here. We were watching on a tiny screen, but it seems like they were throwing a secondary defender at Booker, leaving whoever their man was, and it kind of put the Suns in fits. And Booker had an awful game, and they had no other valve, right? I always say valve, but they had no other bucket getter. And bucket getters are plentiful. And I think Mikal Bridges could show up. Cam Johnson can fill it up. CP3 still has a great offensive game, but none of them did it. And I don't know how to attribute that. That take is correct. Whatever. I like the idea of it, but it seems very results based, right?
Yeah, totally. I agree. I will say that maybe because Phoenix was so system oriented, that
can you
almost
talk
in
about that system? Like, is it that rotations? Is it what happens when CP3 brings the ball up?
Well, I guess for them it's like you run a high pick and roll. They do tons and tons of ball movement. You know, they have Jay Crowder spacing the court. Like they are probably the
Cam Johnson
foremost sort of
king.
legacy of like Spurs, Warriors ball movement teams. They really
Agreed.
push the ball around. They play super smart. They always get good shots.
A lot of
And
screens.
when it was disrupted, they, as to your point, they didn't seem to have like another bucket getter. Like, where was your guy? And in the same way, the Bucks didn't have Middleton, and you see it break down. Like, all right, Giannis is being like swarmed in the paint. There's 4 defenders waiting to get him the ball there. They don't trust their shooters. Milwaukee shot like 14% from 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have that other guy. And this kind of goes back to what we were saying about Embiid. When teams figure out ways to stop like your number one thing, to stop like what you like to do, what else do you have?
Right.
And I think that's kind of what happened with the Suns. They just didn't have something else.
Yeah. And like the Suns defense is a great defense. We're talking about a historically great team going into this series. And
What, 64 wins or something?
yeah. And it's the sauce is obvious, right? The Mavericks start and end with Luka Doncic. But then we saw in the series, like, Dinwiddie, Brunson's going to drop 24 on our head? Like, okay, if Luka is still going to go for 35 on 19 shots, incredible. And these supporting players, who are not like stars by any mean, they're going to get nice contracts. Dinwiddie has a nice contract, but they're not like players you game against. But when they drop 24 and 30 on you, like, you're dead. It's just like game. And I still think this Game 7 was an anomaly, but I took some satisfaction in it because all season, and I don't like to gloat, but all season, only about my Celtics winning. So to remember that. But all season it was Booker's the MVP candidate, because if MVP is an award for excellence, the Suns are excellent, and their best player has to be represented here. And we always said on Cookies, it's Chris Paul, not Devin Booker.
I think he finished like maybe 3rd or 4th in MVP voting, or 4th or 5th. I forget
he
exactly
got
which one.
votes.
There was the big 3, and then there was, I think Booker was 4, maybe Morant was 5, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and Booker in an elimination game last night goes 3 for 14 for 11 points, a negative 41. A stat I like is assists to turnovers, 2 assists to 4 turnovers. He was bad. But then after the game, all we hear is like, is Chris Paul a loser? I'm like, no. Chris Paul kind of did his job. He shot 50% from the field. Devin Booker had a bad game because Devin Booker is a bit of a unitasker that apparently is streaky and you may be able to game against.
Let's talk about Luka for a second here. They're playing the Warriors, and the Warriors will be favored. I don't know what to think about the series, because it reminds me a little of LeBron. I want to say it was in his 4th year, maybe, whatever. Went up against the Pistons, and the Pistons were coming off a championship, I believe, or at least a trip to the finals. And this was that Pistons team that had Ben Wallace and Rasheed and all those guys. And LeBron went out there and scored 24, 25 points straight in the 4th quarter. You're just like, all right, he's that guy.
Yeah.
That's it. They have him. They're going to win.
Yeah.
He's too good for your good team. You just can't handle him.
Yeah.
And Luka might be hitting that right now, where the Suns can go out there and you have a team that's won championships. You've got you've got Poole, you have Wiggins, you've got more talent that's there. Hey, Luka might just be too good. You guys are kind of old. You're just gonna Luka's just gonna eat you. I don't know this will happen,
Right.
and I'm not a bettor, but I just wonder, like, is that what we're seeing? Are we seeing Luka rising as like the best offensive player in the NBA, and he's just going to carry this team and beat teams that we say on paper, or even not on paper, are better than them because Luka is just the best player on the court, and he's going to make it happen?
Man, like going way back to Mina Kimes' story about Luka Doncic when he was a glimmer in the Mavericks' eye, who tanked for him, and we thought he could be the best prospect since LeBron James, and the only fault he had was he was the nacho king. He loved American junk food, which is amazing, and apparently he still does. But it was especially interesting to see him dominate a DeAndre Ayton team who was taken before him, and the rumors were like, well, we didn't know enough about this European guy, Stephen A. Smith. People are digging up old takes, which I think is kind
He's
of
only been a pro since he was like 14.
and we haven't seen him with our own eyes. I don't care about this videotape, or these sizzle reels on this YouTube, but
We never got to see him play against the Boilermakers.
I got to take DeAndre Ayton, man. And I'm with you. I think Luka, to us, to Cookies, he's been a god level player for a while, but like this stage is awesome to see him. I was worried about his calf going into the playoffs. I was like, ugh, we got to wait another year for God Luka to take over. But it's happening, and he might be the best offensive player in this series, which is crazy to think about because Steph Curry is alive, but he's also getting older. Something his shot is not dropping like it used to. Like, time sucks. Seeing Steph Curry mortal is sad, but it's just a matter of time. But seeing Luka become immortal is like as exciting. Luka should start. Everyone said he might win multiple MVPs. I think that story starts now.
Yeah, what you're saying about Curry, he's shooting a lot of threes. He's taken, almost 11 a game, but he's shooting, 36% in the playoffs. Over the regular season, I don't know if it's the hand, he shot 38%. Yeah, he's still an awesome player. Obviously he's capable of, taking and making shots that other guys just cannot even fathom. He draws so much attention.
He's
Those things
an
are all
off-ball
true.
king. Yeah.
But as you said, he's getting older. He does have, he has some injuries, and I don't know. This just might be the rise of Luka. I think he's averaging like 33, 10, and 8 or something. Thus far in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, the Suns kind of questioned him, kind of taunted him, and he just buried them.
Well, I mean,
He buried them, boys.
Devin Booker, literally to the camera, clowned him. And Luka on the way to the locker room was like, yeah, you act tough when you're up, but like, I'll see you in game 6 and 7. Woo! Damn, Luka. Like, that was fun. That was fun, right? That tension was really great. And it was a joy to celebrate Christmas that way.
Yes, without the getting too granular and discussing the series, because that's kind of not what we do. What I'm interested in seeing is how Golden State approaches defending him, because they don't have the kind of individual defenders that even Phoenix had to throw at him, and they've got a lot of guys who are kind of like liabilities.
Dre did not look great. Does not look great up until.
I also just don't know if Dre can guard him. Dre is older. He's not as fast as he used to be. I think in spots, Dre will certainly probably make some big plays, but I don't think you can say, Dre, you're on him. I think that'll go to Wiggins.
Yeah,
but the Mavs get those switches, and like Clay can't guard him, Curry can't guard him, Poole can't guard him, Looney can't guard him. I mean, you basically have everyone on the floor except for Wiggins and Dre. I know Warriors are very adept with pre-switching, to avoid getting their weaker defenders on the opponent's best players, but they just have a lot of guys out there that can't guard Luka, like just a wild amount of them.
I don't know if many teams can. I mean, Mikal Bridges to me was the defensive player of the year, and Luka had his filet mignon.
but he had his caprice.
Yeah, no tomatoes.
But no, I agree. And I mean, but if you look at the Suns, like, okay, Booker couldn't guard him. Chris Paul's a good defender. Mikal Bridges is a good defender. Jay Crowder's a good defender. I just mean they had pretty credible defenders at every kind of perimeter slot.
Yeah.
The only guy, what's his name, backup point guard, he could get roasted. But generally speaking, Phoenix had very, very legit perimeter defense. Golden State Warriors have a good overall defense, but they play a lot of guys who can't really guard in the perimeter at this point.
I agree. I mean, I still have faith in Draymond Green as the quarterback and as the cerebral defender.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's going to be. I think Luka will have his caprese salad, but the key is to mitigate everything else. Right? Brunson cannot go off. Dinwiddie cannot go off. But to your exact point, the perimeter defense, at their best, Klay Thompson was a great man-on-man defender. He's not that anymore. I'm so happy to see him on the court. He's had some Klay moments in this playoffs. I love it. I'm a fan of his. But like that injury really zaps your potential for lateral movement, for the tools you need to become the defender, to be the defender he used to be. So shout out to that King, but he's not that anymore. That's going to be a fun thing to watch immediately. 5 minutes into the game, we're going to get a better sense of it. But going into it, the perimeter creation from Dinwiddie, Brunson, and Luka is formidable. And I think the strength of the Warriors defense is in the forward, the bigs position.
And, Iguodala's been dinged up too, and he's old as dirt.
Yeah.
But generally speaking,
played with Iverson.
Right. I mean, to be fair, Golden State has had a great defense over the course of the season, and they had it last year. So I'm not doubting them as a good defensive team. And Dre is like a wonderful floor general on that side of the ball, as you mentioned. I just think they're going to run into some real problems with people just not being able to guard Luka. And we always talk about styles make fights.
Yep.
I'm like, well, if you don't have a Luka solution, if you don't have a Kawhi to throw at him, and maybe there's no one out right now who does have a solution for Luka. I don't know.
Dude, we got to talk about the leprechaun in the room. And me wanting the Leprechauns to win the best. I'm a Knicks fan, but also I'm always right about the Celtics. So give me a second.
Yeah, no. Like,
let me reveal the tiny green hand.
I'm not trying to take your gold.
Where's me gold, Ben? So I think you're talking credibly about a very interesting situation in this series. And let's say the Mavericks proceed to the finals. And let's say Heat culture isn't as strong as we thought. Leprechauns have a path for it all. I'm just saying, as a Leprechaun day one, I don't want to brag yet, but all I'm going to say is finals win, baby. Marcus Smart, finals MVP.
It's possible. And I'm excited to see our guy Tatum.
Be better.
I want to see him succeed against, like a starting caliber wing. Like without Middleton. They just didn't have a pro caliber ball player to throw at him, who was his size. I think Jimmy Butler will be a good example. I just want Tatum to improve and have a good series against someone who's like, a talented wing defender.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we haven't mentioned this being the police procedural that it is, this playoffs. The Bucks-Celtics series was an inside job, man. Ever heard of this guy, Patrick Connaughton? Ever look up where he's from? Did you see how many minutes? Did you see how many bad plays he committed? I don't know. I just want to see. I'm not a Joel Embiid snitch, but I might be. Just being honest.
Look, we've done a lot of exposing on this pod. People got exposed.
I love cookies.
There's a lot to be. No, we're going to expose more people.
The re-exposables?
Reach at the wine bar.
Cookies.